Welcome to the Valareso Capital community, where we discuss the stock market and trading strategies to become a consistently profitable trader and investor. Hey traders, welcome back to Valareso Capital. In today's video, we're going to go through the weekly watch list, and as always, we're going to go through the market update. So let's just jump into the charts here, guys. It was an amazing week. I had one of the best weeks in my entire year, so it was actually pretty fun. And if you remember, guys, in last week's video, we were talking about a possible buying opportunity in the pullback that we saw. Basically, that's exactly what happened. So we're gonna go through the charts, and of course, we're gonna check the levels so that we can create a high probability thesis of what might happen next week. Remember, guys, that this video is for informational purposes only. It's based just on my personal opinion and is not financial advice. So let's jump here into the charts. So I was thinking how to start this video, and as always, you know that I love to begin my videos with the SPX. So let's take a look at here at what happened with the SPX. If I'm not mistaken, right, this was Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday. I remember that we made the weekly video on Monday, so I think that we made it somewhere around this candle right here, and we were starting to see that pullback at the beginning of the week. So we were starting to test that 8 exponential moving average, which is the start of this shadow region that I have on my charts. Of course, you can see right here that we got buyers on Monday and Tuesday because we closed above that 8 exponential moving average. And then on Wednesday, we actually had this kind of shakeout bar. And it was pretty interesting to see, because if you follow a lot of traders on X, on Twitter, you can see that a lot of people were getting a little bit anxious about this candle right here. But of course, if you have been following the channel, we knew, well, we didn't knew, but we already created a hypothesis that we were going to hold this trading range right here. So basically, we were talking about how the bottom part of the trading range, if you remember last week's video, that was the buying opportunity, right? We were talking about how when things are chopping around, the low levels of a trading range tend to be opportunities to accumulate a position in chop. That way you can hold through the chop, and then eventually you're gonna get these breaks to the upside, like the one that we had on Friday. So that's actually very important to understand. When you're trading on chop, sometimes the best opportunity to open your positions is going to be on those days that things feel really bearish, things feel really kind of uncomfortable. That's the moment when you want to buy that kind of action. So once again, that was a really nice opportunity, and now we're starting to see that break to the upside. Now, we have to understand that 4,600 is a very important level of resistance. We do have what they call a call wall at 4,600. Basically, just a really strong gamma strike, meaning that we have a lot of resistance at that level. And then, of course, we tend to see a change on those levels as soon as the monthly expiration is over. So the monthly expiration is going to be next week on Friday. Remember that we have monthly expiration every third Friday of each month. So as soon as that expiration is over, we're probably gonna see a roll up on that strike, and then perhaps the market is gonna be able to move more freely to the upside. So just have that into consideration. If we just happen to continue next week, then the short-term target is going to be somewhere around 4,640, 4,650. That's going to be kind of the 50 points that we're going to be looking on the SPX. But remember that we tend to see bigger moves on the individual stocks. So now that we have an understanding of what might happen next week, let's start looking at some of the setups. So the first setup that I want to take a look at, and is basically the setups that we were talking about last week, right? Remember that we were talking about Amazon. Remember that we were talking about Tesla. So let's take a look at Amazon here. Amazon is looking fantastic. We continue to trade inside the range, but you can see that this is basically what, the third day? I think, yeah, this is basically the third inside day that we had on these candles. You can see that we have the mother bar, which is the big bar that we have on Amazon, and then we had an inside day right here when then we have another inside day, and now we have another inside day on Amazon. So this is getting really coiled, and after we get that kind of contraction, we tend to see that expansion to the upside. The Fibonacci zone is going to continue to be the target, and this is actually one of my favorite trades going into next week. You can see that this is the anchor VWAP, anchor from the swing high, and you can see that we have been closing above it for the second day straight, and that's usually a suggestion that we're gonna see that break to the upside. Perhaps next week we're gonna see that really nice move in Amazon. So it's gonna be the first setup. If you don't have any exposure in Amazon, try to get it as close to that anchor VWAP as possible. That way your risk reward continues to be really good. I was fortunate enough to build my position around that 21 exponential moving average, so I do have a lot of cushion in Amazon, and I'm looking forward for a move next week. Let's jump into Tesla here, which is also looking amazing, and you can see that the action is pretty similar, right? You can see right here that we have been trading in a range. But what is really interesting is that these last 2 days, we close above that anchor VWAP from the high. You can see that we have the anchor VWAP from the swing high, and we already close above it on this day right here and on this day right here. So that's usually a suggestion that perhaps we're going to see that move to the upside on Tesla. You can see that we have a squeeze. This is the TTM squeeze, but I'm just looking at the dots. And then, of course, if you look at my momentum indicator, this is holding the midline, and then usually we tend to see that expansion to the upside. So Tesla is also looking good. I do think that is actionable. You just have to be really aware of how you manage your exposure. I usually prefer to get my exposure as close to that 21 exponential moving average. I do think that the best risk reward is around that level. So that's gonna be Tesla. And then I do have a lot of exposure right now, guys. So I do have exposure in Amazon, Tesla. I do have exposure in the TQQQ. I do also have exposure on the TECL, which is the 3x leverage ETF for the XLK. Also, I have exposure on the SMH via the SOXL. So let's take a look at that setup, because that one is also looking amazing. But this one, I think this one might just go to the target. So my target in this one, I was able to once again get my exposure at around that 21 exponential moving average. And of course the target, when you have a deep pullback like this one, I don't see the extension as my first target. I usually tend to take my profits as soon as we test that upper level of the range, because usually what happens is that you go back to that top level of the range, and then you see a little bit more consolidation, so you get a second opportunity to jump in that trade at better prices, because sometimes you can see something like this and we come all the way back to those moving averages, and then you get another opportunity to trade it to the upside. So this one is looking pretty nice. We also have the beginning of a squeeze, which is great. So it's going to be the SMH. I do think that we're going to have a couple of moves here in the SMH. So now that we're talking about the SMH, let me show you AMD. This was actually my best trade for last week. I was able to build my exposure around here, and also on this level around here, around that 13 to 8 exponential moving average. And then of course we had that huge move to the target on Friday. I took my profits on this day right here as we were close enough to the target. But what I really like about AMD here, and you can see that I have an anchor VWAP zone from this giant candle that we had. What I'm looking forward here is if we can actually, from this target right here, if we can actually pull back a little bit. You can see that I do have a trend line. And what is really interesting here is that if we happen to see this pullback into this anchor VWAP zone, I do think that it's going to offer a new trade all the way to that next level of 135. So keep AMD in mind. We do have a squeeze. So I do think that we're going to have another opportunity to trade AMD. So realize, guys, that the battery on the camera is dead. So let's just finish the video like this. We were talking about AMD, how we came back to this level. So maybe we're going to be able to form here and then continue to the upside. And the other name that I want to show you is going to be NVDA. And the thing about Nvidia here is that, of course, we had this giant retracement, but we're holding that 50 daily moving average. And as long as we're holding that 50 daily moving average, I do think that Nvidia has a really nice probability of coming all the way back to 500. We did trigger a buying opportunity as soon as we reclaimed that 21 exponential moving average. But at this point, even if Nvidia goes a little bit to the upside, then I'm probably gonna be waiting for a retest of this breakout base, and that one is gonna be the spot to buy some exposure. So if we have this retest right here, that would be an amazing place to get some exposure. And then of course the first target is just gonna be a retest of that 500 level, and then we're probably gonna continue to the upside to that 520 level. But Nvidia is looking really good, so keep this one on your watch list as well. And then the last name, guys, is gonna be Microsoft. What I really like about Microsoft here is that Microsoft has been leading this move to the upside, right? You can see this crazy move that we had to the upside, and we finally got a retracement. We're basically holding this breakout level, and really interesting to see that momentum is holding. Short-term momentum, my long-term momentum are holding pretty nicely here, and you can see that we have a squeeze. So this one is actually a pretty amazing setup. I do think that is going to be similar to SMH. Remember that when we have these really deep pullbacks, we tend to see resistance at the top of the range, and then perhaps we're going to get another setup. So this is going to be the first target, right? The first target is going to be right here at the top of the range, and then the second opportunity to get in is if we happen to see a pullback, and then of course a continuation to the upside, guys. So that's going to be it for the video. Basically, the thesis that we're creating for next week is going to be that we're probably going to see just a continuation to the upside. Remember that we have OPEX, so we tend to see a little bit of some crazy moves in the market, but overall I do think that we're going to see continuation into the end of the year, and then probably most likely we're going to see continuation all the way to January, to mid-January. So keep your setups keep these setups on your watch list, guys, and I will see you on future videos. Take care, take care, guys. Bye bye. See you.